What if I told you that the code powering the self-driving cars on our highways, the AI recommending your next Netflix binge, and even the algorithms that help find new planets in distant galaxies was created as a side project? A hobby. Something a Dutch programmer named Guido van Rossum cooked up during his Christmas break in 1989. Because he was bored? This isn't the story of a billion-dollar startup or a massive corporate project. This is the story of how a language designed for simplicity, readability, and a bit of fun quietly took over the world. This is the story of Python. And over the next few minutes, you're not just going to learn what it is. You're going to understand why it's the single most important programming language for the next decade of human innovation. Now, let's get one thing straight. Most people think computer programming looks like this, an absolute nightmare of symbols and brackets that only a super genius could ever understand. You might have even tried looking at languages like C or Java and felt completely overwhelmed, like you were trying to read an alien language. It's intimidating. It feels like the computer is yelling at you. But what if code wasn't a command? What if it was a conversation? That's the secret of Python. The entire philosophy behind its creation can be boiled down to one word: readability. Look at this. This is a simple program in Java to print hello world to the screen. We have a public class, public static void main string args. It's a whole ceremony just to say hello. It's confusing. Now, look at the same thing in Python. That's it. Print hello world. It's not a command. It's a simple English instruction. You're not fighting the language. You're having a conversation with the computer. This single idea that code should be simple, elegant, and easy to read is the reason Python has become the go-to language for everyone from middle school students to NASA engineers. It's a language for people, not just for machines. So if you've ever felt that programming was too hard, that's not your fault. You were just learning the wrong language. What are some of the biggest myths you've heard about coding? I'm genuinely curious. Write them down in the comments below. So, let us go back to 1989. Guido van Rossum is working at a research institute in the Netherlands called CWI. He's a brilliant programmer, but he's frustrated. He's working with a language called ABC, which was designed to be simple. It was failing. It was clunky and rigid. At the same time, the world of computing was messy. You had all these different operating systems like Unix, Mac, and the beginnings of Windows. Programmers had to write completely different code to get their programs to work on different machines. It was a nightmare. Guido had a radical idea. What if he could create a language that was as readable as ABC, but far more powerful and flexible? A language that could act as a glue, connecting different complex programs together. A language that could run on any machine without being rewritten. So, during his Christmas holiday, he started coding. And as a big fan of the British comedy troupe Monty Python's Flying Circus, he gave his little side project a quirky, memorable name, Python. He released the first version in 1994, and something incredible happened. Other programmers saw the genius in it. They started volunteering their own time to help build it. This wasn't a product made by Microsoft or Apple. It was a community project. This is critical. Python is what's known as open source, which is a fancy way of saying it's free for everyone. Forever. You don't have to pay to use it. You can see exactly how it's built, and anyone can contribute to making it better. This community-driven approach is a huge reason for its success. On October 16, 2000, a major milestone was hit. Python 2.0 was released. This was a huge deal. It introduced features that made it even more powerful, including something called a garbage collector. Now, that sounds weird, but it's a brilliant concept. Imagine every time you create a variable or a piece of data in your code, you're opening a box and putting something inside. In older languages, you, the programmer, were responsible for remembering to close and throw away every single box you opened. If you forgot, your program would have a memory leak, eating up all your computer's resources until it crashed. A garbage collector is like an automatic janitor. It runs in the background, finds all the boxes you're not using anymore, and cleans them up for you. It's one of the many ways Python protects you from making common mistakes. But then came the big one. On December 3rd, 2008, Python 3.0 was released, and it caused a civil war in the programming world. You see, Python 3 wasn't just an update, it was a redesign. The developers wanted to fix some of the fundamental, quirky mistakes from the early days. But in doing so, it made Python 3 backwards incompatible. This means code written for Python 2 would not work on Python 3 without being changed. For years, the community was split. Major companies had built their entire infrastructure on Python 2 and didn't want to spend millions of dollars rewriting everything. But Python 3 was the future. It was cleaner, faster, and better designed. For nearly a decade, a beginner programmer had to make a tough choice between the old, widely supported version and the new, technically superior one. Finally, in 2020, official support for Python 2 ended. Today, the war is over. Python 3 won. So for this entire course, everything we do will be in the latest, greatest version of Python 3. So that brings us to today. Why is this 30-year-old language suddenly the undisputed king of the hottest field in technology, artificial intelligence, and machine learning? It comes down to three things. 1, simplicity. AI algorithms are insanely complex. You don't want your programming language to add to that complexity. Python's simple syntax allows data scientists to focus on the math and the logic, not on fighting with semicolons and brackets. 2, a massive library. Remember that community we talked about? Over the decades, they have built an incredible ecosystem of free, open source tools for Python. For AI, there are libraries like TensorFlow, PyTorch, and scikit-learn. These are like massive, pre-built collections of Lego blocks for building AI models. You don't have to build a neural network from scratch. You can just import a library and get started in minutes. 3, flexibility. Python is the Swiss Army knife of programming. It's perfect for quickly writing a script to test an idea, what we call prototyping. But it's also powerful enough to run the massive data pipelines at companies like Google, Instagram, and Spotify. It can do it all. This combination has created a perfect storm. As AI and data science exploded, Python was right there, waiting. It was the easy, powerful, and free tool that was perfect for the job. So, now you know the why. You know the story of a hobby project that became a global phenomenon, and you know why it's the engine of modern AI. You understand the philosophy of simplicity that makes it the perfect language for beginners. But knowing the history is one thing. Speaking the language is another. The next step isn't about theory, it's about action. We need to set up your digital workshop. We need to install Python on your machine and write our very first lines of code. It's a process that can seem intimidating, but it's actually incredibly simple if you know the exact steps to take. Now that you know the story of what Python is, it's time to take the first step in becoming a Python programmer yourself. Let's talk about the secrets of setting up the perfect development environment by watching this next video.